name is Jenny, and I'm a wife and mom raising 2 kids. But I used to live a more glamorous life as a TV reporter. I was on the nightly news interviewing pop stars and politicians. So when I said goodbye to TV and hello to motherhood, I suddenly discovered what we moms are up against. We live in a world that tells us to be rich and famous, thin and successful. You know, almost nobody says, "Oh, hey, you're a mom? That's fabulous." But you are fabulous, and I'm here to tell you why.
It's the Channelmom Show, celebrating you with Jenny Dean Schmidt.
This is where we celebrate you. And you know, by the way, you can watch our show all week at channelmom.com. We just put it up there so you can watch it for the rest of the week if you miss it or you know someone who's missed it on the radio. If you're a mom like me, you probably wish your skin looked a little younger and felt a little less dry here in Colorado. Lemongrass Spa Products, and I happen to know the president, she's wonderful, offers all kinds of natural, yummy smelling remedies for a mommy's skin. Shelly, you've used them too. Treatments like fabulous body polishes.
They are wonderful.
They are. They just make your skin feel brand new. Scents like grapefruit and lemon sorbet and bronzing butters, which makes your skin look gorgeous for summer. And finally, one of my personal favorites, pomegranate facial polish, which leaves your facial skin looking younger and glowing, truly. Lemongrass Spa is owned and operated by a mom, and this month we're doing some giveaways. I don't know if I'm going to do a giveaway on the show today, but they've got some fabulous products in this little $10 giveaway. Or you can go order it on their website. It's the Channel Mom Sampler Pack at lemongrassspa.com. You just go there and you can enter in Channel Mom and you can find that sampler pack and buy it. Alrighty, coming up now, we have a wonderful guest. She admits to being overwhelmed by motherhood at first, but now she's got some great advice for other overwhelmed moms. Robin Chaddock is the author of books like Mom Overboard, 12 Great Choices Smart Moms Make, and How to Get a Smart Mouth. Robin is also a college teacher, insightful speaker, and seminar leader. I started out our recent interview by asking Robin, why the title Mom Overboard?
Well, it's sort of autobiographical, really.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I was the mom of small kids, I really felt overwhelmed. I really did. And I only had 2, you know?
Yes.
What a wimp, right?
Well, no.
I really felt overwhelmed. And it wasn't until I started thinking about why was I feeling so overwhelmed that I realized that the sea or the ocean analogy was really, really great for me, that I felt like I was sinking and not swimming as a mom, like I'd sort of been tossed over the side of a boat. To fend for myself, and that I didn't feel like I was doing a particularly good job at it, and so that's how the title Mom Overboard came along, and then in the first part of the book I talk about the 3 C's that moms can drown in, or feel like they're splashing around in, which are competition, comparison, and choice. And so it all just started falling together,
Yeah. And did you have a breakthrough moment where you thought 2 things? One is a lot of other moms must be experiencing this, and whatever I learn, I want to share with them. Why don't you tell me about the 2 sides of that?
That's a great question, Jenny. That is a great question. What I realized, actually, was as I looked around at some of the other moms in my life, my peers, I recognized that some of them didn't actually seemed to be feeling the way I was feeling. And so I sat down with them and I said, look, this is how I'm feeling. How come you seem more balanced? How come you seem, happier or just more calm in all of this? And I started collecting from those very wise women the things that they said helped them to stay balanced. But I also, as I was starting to put the thoughts together and the title together and was telling other moms about it, I did have plenty of moms say, may I be the cover model?
Really?
That sounds a lot like me. And,
okay.
So I realized there were moms that were doing it well or, looked like they were doing it well and felt happy and balanced and calm. And there were also plenty of moms like me who felt a little bit nuts.
Right. I think most of us have probably been there at one time or another.
Right.
And you have a number of lifesavers that you came up with, everything from the self-care lifesaver to the laughter lifesaver to the play lifesaver to the celebrate uniqueness lifesaver and so on. Yes and no lifesaver, which I think I know what that is. I'd love to hear about 1 or 2 of those lifesavers that you would think would be most helpful to our audience.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think the self-care one ranks right up there. And that is because, and I know you completely understand this, you can only be a healthy mom if you're a healthy woman. And so being a healthy person means that we need to take good care of ourselves. And I don't mean by that, regular spa treatments every week and things like that, although those are nice. I mean, that's nice. But what I mean is taking really good care of ourselves in terms of how we talk to ourselves. What's the self-talk going through our heads all the time? Taking good care of ourselves physically when it's very tempting. I don't know if you did this, but when there was leftover mac and cheese on the plate, I would just eat it.
Sure.
And, a steady diet of that, as tasty as it is not going to really do me any good.
Right.
Choosing good friends, is very, very
huge.
important.
That's huge.
Huge. And then, as you just alluded, the saying yes and no lifesaver is a big part of self-care as well, because we as much as we hate to admit it, we've only got limited resources in terms of time and energy. And moms have to, as women first, decide what it is that is honestly and truly important to them. Not to the culture, not to everybody else around them, but what is honestly and truly priority and important to them. And then they have to say no to everything that is not going to support that mission.
I agree, and I think it's a confusing time for them to figure out their yes and no's, their yeses and their no's, because of what the culture is saying to them. And I do think that's one place where friends come in. I see so many moms, and I think in particular moms who work full time and long hour kinds of jobs, who don't get that piece where they get to rely on friends for more than going out for happy hour. I was blessed to have met some friends through MOPS and church and things like that, who came alongside me and encouraged me in my mothering. And I think sort of in the general world at large, a lot of friendships are not made that way. And I had moms who really supported me in my mothering. Do you think that's very common, or do you think a lot of moms just don't get support in their mothering in that way?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the choices that a mom really, really intentionally makes. And are we making choices to pursue and encourage good friendships, or because of our self-talk, are we, putting ourselves down and not pursuing those friendships and just thinking, gosh, I should be able to do this all by myself. Can't, everybody do this all by themselves. And,
Sure.
And it really, really boils down to choice, to my way of thinking. Boils down to, what am I choosing for myself? Am I choosing to try and do this all by myself, or am I going to choose to be, somewhat vulnerable? Because friendship is about some vulnerability, at times,
Sure, and
not being perfect, and letting other people see the good parts and what we might think are not so good parts, and making a choice to be vulnerable and making a choice to let other people support us. It doesn't mean we're weak people. It just means we're human people.
Sure, absolutely. And that's the place where help begins, when we admit our vulnerability. I have to say that when you talk about Mom Overboard and you talk about how you felt as a new mom, I think about the things that are in the news these days, to be honest with you. We see the mom that administered Botox to her child, and then we most recently and unfortunately saw about the mom who allegedly killed her son out in Maine, I believe. And I look at what's going on in the culture at large, that these women are led to these desperate measures. And again, I come back to my premise, which is behind Channelmom, which says, what is the culture doing to the identity of mothers and to the image of motherhood that brings them to this place where they're hurting their children and doing wrong things to their children, and in this case, killing their children. And I think there's very little support out there just for the thought of motherhood. Just, oh, you go, girl, and that's a great thing, and let me give you these resources. They're all kind of TV commercials for mother, but not much else, for a mother. And so I wonder what you think in light of this Maine situation. And granted, I'm sure that, there was some mental illness there or something like that, but still, no one to turn to in her mothering. What would you say about that? The extended community
is so important. A healthy extended community, is so important. And I agree with you. I think, there are many. I'm a psychology teacher part-time, and I tell my students all the time that people do the things they do for compelling reasons, and the reasons are compelling sometimes only to them, and so there is some sort of physical thing that's happening, or mental thing that's happening, or spiritual thing that's happening that that drives moms to do the kinds of things that these moms have done. And it's not to excuse them, but sometimes if we walk a mile in other people's shoes, we can sort of go, wow, I get it, even if I don't think it's right, or I don't agree with it. And I think that, I think part of it has to do with as early as we can possibly make good choices, making good choices for good and healthy and strong relationships, and good and healthy self-talk for ourselves. And so, I think about that mom, like you said, the mom in Maine, and you ask yourself the question, what in the world went on there? That she's not the first one to do that, in the last decade or so.
No.
And we've seen just really sad pictures, and part of it is, is the script that mom had for herself. Either she felt like she was, a failure, or she felt like she couldn't handle the job, or she felt like she would be freer if she didn't have a child, with what does it mean to be freer? Just all kinds of stuff, you know?
Yeah, and the pressures that are involved there. I want to ask you one more question before we end. I know that you feel strongly about the mother as an individual. Obviously, mothering is extremely important in and of itself, but sometimes moms need to recognize themselves as individuals and develop that as well. And I know you work with mothers for something, I believe, that's called helping to find their divine assignment.
Yes.
We all have a purpose on earth, and I think that you try to teach moms or help moms find their God-given purpose. How does that work? Because I'm sure there are some moms out there that are interested in that.
Well, honestly, that was one of the things that started to turn the tide for me. Using the ocean metaphor was one of the things that started to turn the tide. Recognizing that I have a larger purpose on the planet, and mothering, being a good and wise mother, was part of that, but it wasn't the only thing for me. And so when I work with people on their divine assignments, we look at what is your basic central passion, and I discovered that mine was wisdom. And then what is like your greatest strength? And I discovered that mine is to stimulate. And so my mission statement, it's a 2-word mission statement, is to stimulate wisdom. And that really helped me, Jenny, because I started looking at everything I did then in a day's time or a week's time or a month's time through the lenses of making the choices to either support my mission or not support my mission. And, making the choices of friends, and making the choices of activities, and making the choices of how I was going to treat my children and relate to them, and beginning to see that I was in their lives to stimulate wisdom, and that really helped me get my head screwed on straight.
Right, that's right. We all need our heads screwed on straight, but we also all need a purpose. And I bet
exactly.
So briefly, just tell me how, if a woman is interested in pursuing that, how does she get a hold of you, and how do you address that?
Oh, I would love, anybody can email me. That's probably the best thing to do right off the bat. And that my email is Robin, ROBIN, coaches,
okay,
COACHES, at AOL.com.
Wonderful. It was lovely to talk to you, Robin.
Great to talk to you, too. Thank you for what you're doing. It is so important.
Oh, thank you. I think so, too. That's why I'm doing it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, dear. God bless you.
She's got fabulous advice. The author of Mom Overboard, Robin Chaddock. Now, coming up, we have something wonderful, a groundbreaking technique for struggling families and children. This is the Channel Mom Show. I'm Jenny Bean Schmidt, AM 1610, FM 93.7.